What if everything you've been told about inflation is technically true, but fundamentally misleading? What if the number you hear across headlines and official reports isn't designed to reflect reality, but to control your perception of it? Because right now, somewhere between your wallet and your reality, something doesn't add up. You earn the same, maybe slightly more, and yet your life feels tighter. Your groceries shrink, your rent climbs, your choices narrow. So ask yourself this: if inflation is only 3%, why does living feel 30% more expensive? Inflation, in its simplest definition, is the rate at which prices rise over time. But that definition hides the real mechanism, because inflation is not about prices rising. It is about money losing value. Imagine money as a measuring stick. If that stick begins to shrink, everything else appears larger. Prices don't need to rise dramatically for your purchasing power to collapse. And this process doesn't begin in your grocery store. It begins in the financial system. When central banks create money digitally, they increase the total supply. More money enters the system, chasing the same amount of goods. But it doesn't hit everything equally. It moves in waves. First into banks, then into markets, then into assets, and only later into your daily life. By the time you feel it, the system has already adjusted. So what you're experiencing is not random. It is delayed, engineered, structured. Inflation is not just an economic event. It is a controlled narrative. To understand the illusion, you have to understand how it's measured. Governments don't guess inflation, they calculate it using a system built on something called the Consumer Price Index. The CPI tracks a basket of goods and services like food, housing, transportation, and healthcare. Each category is assigned a weight. Each price is monitored over time. If the total basket rises by 3%, inflation is declared to be 3%. Simple, clean, convincing. But here's the problem: that basket is not your life. It is a model, a constructed average. It assumes how you live, how you spend, and how you adapt. But reality doesn't follow models. Your life is not an average. Your expenses are not evenly distributed. So when you hear inflation is 3%, you are not hearing a fact, you are hearing a calculation. And every calculation depends on what is included, what is excluded, and what is quietly redefined. Now the distortion begins, because the system doesn't just measure prices. It measures your reaction to them. This is called the substitution effect. When prices rise, the system assumes you adjust. If beef becomes expensive, you buy chicken. If chicken rises, you downgrade again. And each time you do, the system updates the basket. So instead of tracking the cost of maintaining your lifestyle, it tracks the cost of lowering it. And suddenly, inflation appears smaller. But ask yourself, is switching from better food to cheaper alternatives the same standard of living? Or is it a quiet decline being recorded as stability? This is not measuring inflation. This is measuring adaptation to loss. Then comes another layer: hedonic adjustments, a system that explains away higher prices. You buy a phone. Last year it cost $800. This year it costs $1,000. But the system says the camera improved, the processor is faster, the screen is better. So part of the price increase is removed. On paper, the phone didn't get more expensive. It got cheaper. But your bank account tells a different story, because you didn't pay in value. You paid in money. Now, the illusion becomes undeniable, because the system removes the most painful parts of your life: food, energy. They call it core inflation. They exclude these categories because they are too volatile. But these are not optional costs. They are survival. And by removing them, inflation looks calm. Stable. Controlled. On paper. But in reality, this is where you feel it the most. And slowly, your experience no longer matches the numbers. So you begin to question yourself. But it's not you. The system didn't remove inflation. It removed what hurts the most. This wasn't always the case. Before the 1980s, inflation was measured more directly, but reality was expensive. Higher inflation meant higher government obligations. So the methodology changed. New techniques were introduced, each one slightly lowering the reported number. Not by stopping inflation. But by redefining it. And over time, the gap widened between what people feel and what is reported. Because inflation doesn't disappear. It reallocates into assets. Stocks, real estate, markets. Prices rise not just because of value, but because of liquidity. More money chasing the same assets. And a divide begins to form. Those who own assets benefit. Those who rely on income fall behind. Same system, different outcomes. This is where inflation reveals its true nature. It is a hidden tax, a continuous erosion of purchasing power. New money enters, your money loses strength. Slowly, silently, without resistance. Because people don't react to gradual loss, they adapt to it. And that's what makes it powerful. You don't pay it once, you pay it every day. Because the system depends on it. Lower reported inflation reduces pressure, maintains stability, prevents panic. And most importantly, preserves confidence. And confidence is everything. Because once people stop believing, the system breaks. So the numbers don't need to lie. They only need to reassure. So what do? You stop trusting averages. You measure your own reality. Your real inflation is your life. And you adapt. Because holding money in a system that devalues it is not neutral. It is a slow loss. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Because inflation is not happening around you. It is happening to you. So next time you hear inflation is under control, don't ask what the number is. Ask something better. What is it costing you to believe it? If you're still watching, you're already ahead of most people. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Understanding this changes nothing unless you act on it. Because the system doesn't reward awareness. It rewards positioning. So ask yourself, are you early or already late? Drop your answer below.